Most men discover the truth about masturbation far too late, usually when it's already taken a silent toll on their body, mind, and dignity. Some find out only after a divorce, others after a terrifying visit to the ER. But for many, the damage hides in plain sight. If you're over 60 and think you know it all about your own body, think again. My name is Dr. James. I'm a board-certified advice for the elderly specialist in men's health and sexual aging. For over 30 years, I've treated thousands of men from their 30s to their 90s. I've seen firsthand how misinformation, shame, and silence around masturbation quietly rob men of their energy, confidence, intimacy, and sometimes even their will to live. There are 4 specific masturbation habits, 4 secrets, really, that most men over 60 never hear about until it's too late. They're simple, they're fixable, but they're rarely discussed. And yet I've had 72-year-olds tell me, Dr. Bazin, if someone told me this 30 years ago, my entire life would have been different. In the next few minutes, I'm going to share those 4 powerful secrets, not opinions, science-backed truths that could help you sleep better, boost your energy, protect your prostate, and even restore your spark in the bedroom. These are not tricks, they're real-life tools that have changed the lives of my patients, men just like you. And don't skip the 4th secret. It's the one most doctors are too afraid to talk about, and the one that has saved marriages, reversed erectile dysfunction, and given older men a whole new sense of purpose. Stick with me. What you'll learn might surprise you and might just save your sex life. Before we go any further, if you find these life-changing health insights valuable, make sure to click subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss another tip designed specifically for men over 60. If this speaks to you, type 1 in the comments. If not, type 0. I read every response, and I'm here to make content that truly serves you. Now, let's dive into the first truth. 1 that surprises almost every man I've ever spoken to. It's not about how often you do it, it's about why you do it and what that reveals about your emotional health. This first secret is where most men get it wrong, not because they're weak, but because no one ever taught them otherwise. Secret 1. It's not just a release. It's a mirror of your mind. Secret 1. It's not just a release, it's a mirror of your mind. I've spent over 3 decades sitting across from men of every age, but there's one conversation I keep having with older men in their 60s, 70s, even 80s. It usually starts with a chuckle, or sometimes shame. Doc, I still do it now, and then hope that's not weird at my age. But what they don't expect is for me to lean in and say, it's not weird, but tell me, why do you do it? That's when the room goes quiet. Most men say the same thing to fall asleep, to relieve stress out of habit, or more often than they're willing to admit, to feel something, anything. Over time, I started to see a pattern, and it broke my heart. These weren't just physical habits, they were emotional lifelines. The first secret I wish every man knew decades ago is this: masturbation is not just about physical release, it's a reflection of your emotional state, your loneliness, your need for control, your inner unrest. It's not just a sexual act, it's a message. And most men never learn how to read it. I once had a patient, Thomas, a retired Marine in his early 70s. He told me he masturbated almost daily, not because he was oversexed, but because it was the only moment in the day when he felt alive. That one word hit me like a punch. Alive. That's what this was about. Not lust, not boredom, survival. And it made me realize how much pain, isolation, and unmet emotional need men quietly carry. Thomas told me something else I'll never forget. If someone had told me in my 40s that how I did this one small thing would affect how I felt as a man later in life, I would have listened. I just didn't know that's what this is about, knowing what no one told you, giving you back your power. When masturbation is driven by emotional emptiness or shame, it can become compulsive, draining, and ultimately hollow. And here's the catch: it doesn't look dangerous on the surface. There's no hangover, no bruises, no crash, but the real damage is invisible. It's the slow erosion of joy, drive, and connection. I'm not here to tell you to stop. I'm here to help you understand why you do it and how to change the relationship you have with your own body. If it's become a mechanical act, a way to pass the time or avoid difficult emotions, it may be time to pause and ask, what do I really need right now? Comfort, touch, intimacy, expression. When older men learn to approach this part of themselves with curiosity and compassion, not just urgency, they begin to heal, they begin to reconnect with their bodies, and more importantly, with their inner lives. This awareness alone has helped many of my patients find a new sense of peace, even dignity. And that's why I say with full conviction, this is the secret every older man I've ever met wishes he had known earlier in life. It could have saved them years of quiet struggle, emotional confusion, and self-blame. But the body doesn't just reflect emotion, it stores it. And that brings us to the next secret, because what's happening inside affects something most men rarely think about until it's too late. Their prostate. If you're still here, and these insights are resonating with you, go ahead and comment the number 1 below, just so I know you're with me on this journey. Now, let's keep going and dive into the second secret, the prostate tax of secret 2. The prostate tax of ignorance. If there's one thing I wish older men understood earlier in life, it's this: your prostate keeps the score, and if you ignore it, you pay the price. I've seen far too many men walk into my office with symptoms they thought were just part of getting older: frequent nighttime urination, painful release, or that frustrating pressure that never fully goes away, but often the root cause goes back decades to how they treated their sexual health, including something as personal and private as masturbation. Most men think the prostate is just some gland that doctors mention once you hit a certain age. What they don't realize is that it's deeply involved in your sexual rhythm, and how often and how mindfully you ejaculate can play a huge role in its long-term health. It's not about guilt or control, it's about flow. Your prostate isn't designed to be neglected, nor is it meant to be overworked. It thrives on regular, moderate activity, not long droughts followed by intense sessions, and not compulsive overuse either. I remember a patient named Carl, 68 years old, tough guy, retired trucker. He came in after a scare, blood in the urine, difficulty starting his stream, discomfort during ejaculation. He was terrified it was cancer. Thankfully, it wasn't, but his prostate was badly inflamed, and when I asked him about his habits, he told me he'd gone years without releasing at all, then started again suddenly and often, thinking it might help wake things back up, but by then, his body had already begun to turn against him. The inflammation was his body's cry for balance, not extremes. Carl looked me in the eye and said, "Doc, no one ever told me this mattered. Not one person in my life ever said this was something I needed to pay attention to." That moment stuck with me, because he's not alone. Most men I treat with prostate issues were never told that their sexual habit, especially how and when they masturbated, could affect this small but powerful gland at the center of their well-being. What they all wish they knew sooner is that ejaculation is part of prostate health. It keeps things moving, flushes toxins, reduces inflammation, and may even lower the risk of prostate cancer. But it's not about chasing numbers, it's about a rhythm that works with your body, not against it. 2 to 4 times a week mindfully, without stress or shame, is shown to be beneficial. More than that, and you risk irritation less and stagnation can begin to build. The key is consistency, care, and listening to your body, not trying to fix or force anything. These are the conversations I wish we were having with younger men, not just those already facing the consequences. But even now, it's not too late to change your path. Awareness alone can begin to shift your choices. The prostate may be small, but it carries a big message. Balance matters. And yet, even when the prostate is healthy, many men still feel something slipping, something harder to name. They may still struggle with weaker erections, loss of sensation, or a subtle but painful drop in sexual confidence. That brings us to the third secret, and this one involves a part of your body you've likely never thought about, but should have been training for years. Secret 3, your pelvic floor is secret 3. Your pelvic floor is aging. And no one told you aging, and no one told you when I first started practicing medicine. I'll admit this wasn't something I even talked about with my male patients. It wasn't in the textbooks, and hardly anyone brought it up. The pelvic floor, that was considered a women's health topic. But after 30 years in men's health, I can tell you with absolute certainty, this is one of the biggest blind spots in male aging, and it's costing older men far more than they realize. Your pelvic floor is a group of muscles at the base of your torso. These muscles control everything from your bladder and bowel to the strength of your erections and the intensity of your orgasms. And just like every other muscle in the body, it weakens with age, especially if you've never trained it or even known it existed. The difference is when your biceps weaken, you get sore arms. When your pelvic floor weakens, you lose something much deeper: confidence, control, and sometimes even dignity. I remember a man named Leonard, 74 years old, proud, a retired engineer. He came to me not because of pain, but because something didn't feel right. He wasn't having the same kind of erections. His climax felt dull, and lately, he noticed a small leak after urinating. He said, "Doc, I don't feel like myself anymore." That sentence stuck with me. Not I don't feel healthy, not I don't feel strong, but I don't feel like myself. We ran tests. Physically, his heart was strong, testosterone stable, but his pelvic floor weak, years of sitting for long hours, clenching during stress. and never being told to care for those muscles had left them barely functioning. No one had ever told him that something as simple as clenching and releasing those muscles, just like women do, with Kegels, could have protected his sexual and urinary health. What older men wish they knew decades ago is that your pelvic floor plays a silent but central role in your entire experience. As a man, it's involved in getting an erection, holding and controlling ejaculation, and fully releasing your bladder. And when those muscles weaken, you don't just lose strength, you lose sensation, stamina, and even that feeling of satisfaction you used to take for granted. The good news, it's never too late to strengthen it with just a few minutes of focused practice a day. Men in their 60s and 70s have reversed leakage, improved erection quality, and restored that vital feeling of control over their bodies. Leonard did it in 6 months. He went from feeling invisible to telling me with a grin, "I didn't think I'd ever feel that again, but I did." I wish every man in his 40s knew this. I wish more doctors talked about it openly. But even now, knowing this can be the beginning of real change. Still, there's one more piece of the puzzle that most men never consider, one that has nothing to do with muscles, hormones, or glands. It's something deeper, a force that quietly shapes how we relate to our bodies, our partners, and ourselves. And it might be the most important secret of all, if you're still here and finding these insights valuable. Type 1 in the comments to let me know you're still with me. Let's keep going. This next secret might be the one that changes everything. Secret 4: shame is the real secret. 4: shame is the real disease, and it's killing intimacy. Disease, and it's killing intimacy. This is the hardest secret to talk about, not because it's complicated, but because it's deeply human. Out of all the lessons I've learned from my patients, this is the one that haunts me most, and it's the one nearly every older man I've ever worked with wishes someone had spoken to them about decades ago. The truth is, most of us were raised in a culture of silence. We were taught that sex was private, that self-pleasure was something to hide, and that real men didn't talk about these things, not with friends, not with partners, not even with doctors. So instead we learned to carry it all alone, the guilt, the secrecy, the fear of being found out. And over time, that silence became something heavier: shame. I had a patient named Walter, 69 years old. Married for 45 years, he came to me not for physical pain, but emotional confusion. He told me he still masturbated a few times a week, usually in secret, not because he didn't love his wife, but because he was afraid of what she'd think. For decades, he'd lived with this quiet burden, believing that his natural needs were somehow wrong, or worse, that they made him less of a man, less of a husband. He looked at me with tears in his eyes and said, "I spent half my life feeling broken for something that's completely normal." That broke me, because Walter's story isn't unique. It's far too common, and what I've seen again and again is this: shame isolates. It drives a wedge between men and their partners, but even more painfully, it drives a wedge between men and themselves. I've watched men shrink in their marriages, stop reaching for intimacy, or avoid honest conversations simply because they're afraid of judgment. But when we start to strip away the shame, when men begin to talk about these things openly, maybe for the first time in their lives, something incredible happens. Relationships soften, intimacy deepens, men start to feel whole again, not because they've changed who they are, but because they've stopped hiding what older men wish they knew sooner. Is this: masturbation isn't the enemy, isolation is secrets, our silence is when you treat your body with respect and your needs with honesty. You give yourself the gift of dignity, and that dignity can transform the way you relate to everyone around you. Walter eventually told his wife everything. He was terrified, but to his surprise, she didn't turn away. She leaned, and they talked for the first time in years about their desires, their distance, and their hopes. And they began slowly to reconnect, not just physically, but emotionally. He told me later, "I thought it would break us, but it saved us." That's why I say this secret might be the most powerful of all. Because when men finally let go of shame, they get something back that many thought was gone forever: connection. Now, if you've made it this far, I want to share one last message. Because knowing these 4 secrets is only the beginning. The next step is turning that knowledge into simple daily habits that can actually change how you feel physically, emotionally, and even spiritually. And that's exactly where we're headed next. The best years of your manhood, the best years of your manhood might still be ahead. If there's one truth I've learned after decades of sitting with men in their most honest moments, it's this: it's never too late to change how you feel in your own skin. These 4 secrets: understanding why you masturbate, protecting your prostate, strengthening your pelvic floor, and letting go of shame aren't just about sex. They're about reclaiming your relationship with your body, your energy, your sense of self. I've watched men come into my office tired, withdrawn, convinced that their best years were behind them. But once they started learning these things they should have been taught 40 years ago, something shifted. They sat taller, they laughed more, they spoke about their bodies. With curiosity, instead of frustration, some reconnected with their partners. Others simply found peace in finally understanding themselves. If you're still reading this, that tells me something. It tells me you care. It tells me you're open, and it tells me that no matter your age, a part of you still believes there's more to experience, more to feel, more to become. You're right, no one gave most of us a manual for how to be men. As we aged, we were told to tough it out, keep quiet, and figure out alone. But we don't have to do that anymore. You don't have to carry that silence. Your body is still speaking to you. Your needs still matter. And with a little knowledge, some compassion, and daily intention, you can write a new chapter. One marked not by decline, but by growth, intimacy, clarity, and strength. This isn't the end of your manhood for many, it's just the beginning. If this message spoke to you, or reminded you of someone you care about, don't keep it to yourself. Like, share, and leave a comment below. Let me know which part hit home for you. Or simply type, "I'm ready," if you're committed to reclaiming your health and confidence. The conversation starts here, and you're not alone.